The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
Welcome to episode 21 of the Florida Podcasting News Show on the Florida Podcast Network. Florida Podcasting News keeps you on the inside of Florida's podcasting industry.
On today's episode, we'll be doing a preview of Podfest 2020
Woo-hoo!
In Orlando.
2 weeks.
I can't wait. Oh my gosh, I am officially getting giddy. And so Glenn and I are going to offer, now normally we have tips at the end of the show. We say like one big juicy tip, but there's so many tips throughout this entire episode. And right off the bat, we're going to offer some of those tips on how to get the most out of your Podfest experience and what we're looking forward to seeing the most. Plus, Steve Adams joins us from the Hiking Radio Network to chat about how they hit 1 million downloads in such a small niche market. Who knew a podcaster out of Florida could have such a successful show about hiking? How that happened? Well, you're going to find out. Listen in.
This episode is brought to you by Flintstone Media. Thanks for joining us.
This is Jaime.
And this is Glenn. Welcome back to the brand new episode of the Florida Podcasting News Show.
And we have to start right at the top with like the biggest congratulations ever, because now I often joke about how when you go to these conferences and you see that there are pins that say, I have 100 episodes, I have 1,000 episodes, that you have to like fill so much of your shirt with all of these pins just to add them up. You just hit another milestone. Horse Radio Network just hit. Ready? Everyone take your guesses now, mentally now, right now. Your guess is in, locked in. Well, you're wrong. It's 10,000 episodes. Oh my good gosh. When do you sleep, pee, eat, drink? When do you do anything else besides talking about horses and producing podcasts?
I was actually kind of surprised because we've been saying, in all of our literature, it says 8,500 episodes. Well, the literature is, I think, old because when I looked, you know me, I don't pay much attention to the whole numbers thing.
You don't pay attention to details? No.
No. So when I looked and saw, it's actually around 10,300 episodes.
Oh my gosh. We're late to the party?
Yeah.
You're late to your own party.
Like, that doesn't sound as exciting as 10,000 episodes. So, but yeah, I was really surprised. They add up quick when you're doing a lot of them. They add up quick.
My goodness. So give us some of those numbers that have added up with 10,000.
Yeah, these are all guesstimates because I don't have accurate numbers over the last 12 years. But I know that I've hosted over 5,000 episodes personally.
Wow. And
the rest, I've produced a lot of those other episodes and certainly edited a lot of episodes. We've had over 13,000 guests. That's 13,000 people talking about horses.
Oh, so, those poor people talking to you.
Millions of downloads. I lost track of the total downloads years ago. I used to do spreadsheets. I was really diligent. And then when it got up to 15, 20 shows, I couldn't do it anymore.
Well, you've been having to do this since like statistics
12 years
with pen and paper. So
Exactly. We're averaging it. And then plus we've changed hosts and you know how that goes. And it's just, average. So if I figured it out, if we average about 44 minutes per episode, because some are short, some are long, that's 440,000 minutes of programming, which is 7,333 hours, which is close to a year.
Wow. Wow. You know what I wish I knew? I wish I was like very sciencey and knew things off the top of my head and can tell you, okay, that's so many trips to the moon or that's so many trips to Mars.
We've had over 60 sponsors and done over 12,000 commercials.
Wow.
So, I've bought 61 microphones, 5 mixers. I had here 10 computers, but this week I had to buy 2 more.
I was just going to say that number needs to be updated in light of recent events.
Week. And then Jamie, my co-host on the morning show, and we have like 10 co-hosts for that show, but her and I do 3 days a week, have spent around 1,500 days on the air together and about 2,000 hours.
Well, building up to 10,000 episodes has been quite the journey for you, Glenn, for Horse Radio Network, and for all of that. And you were so eloquent in how you captured that journey. I got to see your words in print because Chris sent out a newsletter with your words in print. And it was really, really touching how you shared your story about Podfest and how it's impacted you as in your career and all of that. And that was really lovely. And what I also understand is that you went ahead and shared it somewhere. So if people want to read your words, where can they find them?
I did a post on Podcasters Hangout, the Facebook page, Podcasters Hangout.
I may have shed a tear or two or three. 14. It was really lovely, really sweet. So if you want a sense, a better sense of what Podfest means, I mean, we're going to get into it here in just a minute with some behind the scenes, inside scoop type stuff and tips. But just to get a sense of what Podfest really, truly means and why it's such an important thing to us, go ahead and read Glenn's post.
And I may have called you a 5'2" ball of a vivacious 5'2" ball of energy.
And that may or may not be accurate.
Now, it's not all sunshine and roses, as Jaime will tell you, because this week was rather challenging. And that happens when you're a professional podcaster. I had 3 computers die in the last 2 weeks. I had to buy 2 new computers, and my mixer's crapping out. So I've had to buy a new mixer. So basically, the last 2 weeks have cost me around $2,000, just equipment. So
okay, so in other words, more sponsors needed. So well done on all those sponsors. More sponsors needed.
It just, it's not all glamour and roses. There's, podcasting's still hard work.
But you do a fantastic job of it. And man, are you leaving a legacy. And the Florida industry really wouldn't exist without you, Glenn. So thank you for you and HRN and all that.
It would, but there'd be 10,000 less episodes.
There would be 10,000 less episodes. And we're going to dive into more about the Florida industry coming up next.
Well, Podfest is coming up, and when I started Podfest, I think 5 or 6 years ago, there were like 100 people there, and it was very intimate. It was a very small room. We were in one room, and I think
famously
I had about 5,000
next to a stripper club, right?
Yes.
I think you mentioned that.
What's a strip club? That's right. Outside the hotel parking lot was a strip club. My first room that I had there in Tampa was overlooking the parking lot strip club, and I remember watching the guys going in and out that night, and it was just interesting to sit there and watch.
Oh, the memories.
Yeah, well, those were the exciting times we had because there were really not a lot of parties and things in those days. So things have changed a lot. We're expecting 1,600 to 1,800 this year.
Wow, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and this is Jaime and I. This is like for us, it is like it's family reunion. We're going home to meet the family. And this is our podcasting family. Jaime doesn't realize it yet this year, and I'm saying this because I won't embarrass her.
What?
But I tend to not have a lot of time at Podfest because there's a line of people waiting to talk to me the whole time, and you're going to have that this year. It's going to be a whole different experience for you this year.
No way, no way, no. I'm just going to be the little ball of chocolate bobbing around the tall guy with the cowboy hat as per usual.
It's going to be a little different. You're going to see.
Whatever.
So there are some things I wanted to talk about with Podfest because I know some of you listening are first timers and are going, and there's a lot to take in. There's like 85 tracks, and there's a lot to do. But Jaime and I have learned some things over the years, and we're going to share some tips for you on how to get the most out of it. And the one thing Chris wanted me, the organizer of Podfest, wanted us to announce again is that there's Saturday and Sunday sessions, and all of those are included in your passes that you bought to come to Podfest. There's also Friday sessions, and some of those are included in your pass. And there are all kinds of different breakout conventions that happen on Friday, and people are confused. They think they have to pay extra for all of them, and that is not true.
And that's called the Creator Pass, that basic general
pass. That's right.
Yeah.
That basic pass will get you in at no extra charge. This is what we have on Friday, the business of podcasting, and that really is talking about the business side of podcasting. Women in podcasting. Say the next one for me.
Pecha Kucha.
Thank you. Pecha Kucha, which is what the little 5-minute talks.
Yeah, those are the timed ones where the slides automatically advance every so often. So it's actually, from a speaker's point of view, just side note, look for this if you want to challenge yourself as a public speaker. Look to do this next year because it's really, really cool. It forces you to have to move forward at a certain pace because the slides advance automatically. And as an audience member, it can be really interesting because people talk about all kinds of things. So yeah, Pecha Kucha. It's a lot of fun.
You did that before, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I think I talked, because
Podcast
literally you
movement?
can talk about anything. Yeah, I talked about having my appendix removed in Paris.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And I think I missed it and got in big trouble.
Yeah, you
Yeah. Then there's the Sports PodCon, which is all about the sports side. Sports is still one of the largest categories of podcasts out there.
Well, 10,000 episodes later, HRN is leading the charge in the sports world.
Well, I'm excited, really excited about being on a panel there. It's called Building Your Brand, and I'm on there with a couple of other panelists talking about this. But the fact that horse people never get recognized as being a real sport. Yet, we get hurt more than any other sport out there.
That is true. That is very true.
And we have an added element in that we have an animal that has a mind of its own. The football does not have a mind of its own. The soccer ball does not think. But the animal does, and there's a harmony and a partnership there with the animal to make things happen. So the fact that they recognized that and said that we were going to recognize the four-legged athletes in the horse world, and that it could be on a panel at the Sports PodCon, very exciting. That's at 12:50 on Friday. There's also Audio DramaCon, one of the leading categories in podcasting now. Military Creator Con, and that's for military people or ex-military people, veterans who are doing podcasts.
Yeah, our buddy James is behind that one.
James is behind it. He's great. And it would, if you're a veteran, go to that on Friday. It's free. You can just show up. And then Podcasting 101, I highly recommend this. Our friend Lee, who's been on the show before, is running that, and it's all for beginners. So if you're a beginner, brand new, Podcasting 101, sit in on that session all day. It'll be worth it. Then there's some extra ones you do have to pay extra for on Friday. The Podcast Editor Con, which is just what it says. It's for podcast editors, and that's $99. The Cinema Voss, which is run by our friend Neil, it's all for voiceover people. And that's Spanish, English, doesn't matter. It's going to be done in English, but it's $99 if you want to learn about how to get into voiceover work. Speaker Pitch Labs, I don't know anything about that one.
I don't know either, but maybe we should.
Yeah, that's $99 too. And then she's LinkedIn for women influencers. I don't know how much that one is. So those you can find them all on the website at podfestexpo.com. You can find all the details. You can find the complete schedule. And also, they're using an app this year, a different app that you're going to want to download. What's it called?
Whova.
It's WHOOVA, right?
No, just one O. Like who? And then va, like the Spanish for going.
And you sign up for that, and then you put in your email address, if I remember right, from the email that you used to sign up for your ticket. That's important.
Right. And then it allows you to kind of connect with everybody in a lot of different ways based on your location. I think also like your niche, if you're on a panel and that kind of thing. And then you can also set up your own little meetup groups and side events and whatnot through there. So it's actually a pretty cool little
You can do your whole itinerary, right?
Whole
sessions
itinerary,
you want to go to.
Everything. Yeah. In fact, because my team has been expanding, yay team, and a lot of them are actually going to be coming to Podfest, courtesy of Podfest. Yay. Podfest. We're actually going to be organizing a little lunch or something like that for us. And so having this app, having it available to all of us to use to coordinate ourselves, coordinate each other, keep tabs on one another is actually going to be very, very useful from a business standpoint too. So I'm pretty excited about it.
And I haven't met them yet. I'm looking forward to meeting your team.
Yeah, I was trying to keep them far away from you as possible for as long as
that's going to... Now, are you speaking at anything on Friday?
I am. Actually, I am speaking at Podfest Editors Conference, and that's going to be Friday, March 6th at 11 a.m. in Grand 14. And it's going to be on a panel where we're going to be talking about additional services that you can add to your production business. So Flintstone Media, actually, we do not just the editing, but we do post-production with the show notes. We also do all the pre-show development stuff. So we help podcasters who are just getting started, like figure out how to do all that. So we offer that as our core business. Then we also offer a lot of marketing and all those kind of supportive things like media kits, one sheets, sales and statistics support. So we're going to get into all of that on our panel. So if you have a ticket for the Podcast Editors Conference, then you are in, my friend.
So we have some tips here for first timers that are coming to Podfest, or maybe not your first time. They're for anybody, really. But here's my pointers. Talk to anyone and everyone. Mm-hmm. You and I met because you came up and talked to me.
Yes,
I did. And asked me for an interview.
I did.
And I could tell that you had been stalking me for a little bit.
I had.
I knew that.
I had. Well, it's hard. Like you were just saying, you are the one who's standing around with a huge crowd around you. Everyone wants to talk to Glenn. So it was really hard to figure out a way to get you in a one-on-one scenario where I didn't think I was completely disrupting you and your, entourage essence.
Well,
so what did I do? I grabbed you right after you came off stage, having just gotten an award. So yeah,
right,
found
exactly.
My opportunity.
But that's how we met. And look, now we're business partners and best friends. So, that's what can happen if you talk to people. So and we are the most unlikely friends you would ever find.
I can't imagine why you would say that, Glenn.
In every way. So you'll learn a lot in the sessions. However, focus on 3 things. After you've taken all your notes, go home, pick 3 things you're going to focus on and act immediately on. If you try and do more than 3, you're going to get overwhelmed and you won't do anything. That's what happens after these conferences. Pick 1 or 2 or 3 things, focus on them, do them, get them accomplished. Then you can move on to some of your other stuff. If you try and do everything at once, you will end up literally doing nothing because you're going to be overwhelmed.
So true.
You agree with that?
Yep. Gosh, that is so true.
Allow time to meet people and talk in the halls. People tend to want to make it, session. It will be the best thing that happens to you at Podfest. Mm-hmm. This truly is a family. It's much more family than other conferences we go to, in any discipline or genre. Attend. This isn't critical if you're new.
One more point about meeting people in the hall. So as you're going through the itinerary, looking at the schedule for Podfest and everything, be purposeful in that. If there's a block of time when there isn't a session that really, really is jazzing you up, then set that time off as just being clear. Allow it to either go in the expo hall, or it can actually be a time that you set aside that if you meet someone that you want to talk with, quote unquote, later, then you can say, hey, I'm going to be free tomorrow at 11:30. How about we chat then?
Sounds good. It's important that you attend the influencer meet and greet on Friday night. I know this is the night before everything starts on Saturday, but be there Friday night. It's the most important activity of Podfest. It's the only place I've ever gone where they do this particular thing. Chris has this down to a science. You're going to meet about 50 people, and they're going to be the people that you're friends with for the entire conference because you've met them, you know what they are, you're going to run into halls, you're going to recognize them. Bring business cards. Bring at least 100 business cards, and you're going to be handing out, which reminds me, I always forget them, so I have to put those in my bag. I got to do that. So I'm going to hand out Jemmy's business cards.
Yeah, you always do anyways. Truth be told.
I did that last time. I said, here, call her.
No, what you did last time was Jemmy got keen to it and started making combo business cards.
Yes.
So you would just... So it was one business card with both of our names.
I've been handing out Jemmy's for years. So yeah, do that, bring business cards, but definitely attend that. I know people tend to want to blow that off, but it's critical. And we have something very special planned to open that, my friend Christy Hauser and I. So, Jemmy doesn't even know about it yet.
Oh, boy.
Attend the improv workshop.
Wait. Is my name involved in it in any way, shape, or form?
No, actually, it is not.
Yay, so good. There. Okay, move on.
So now attend the improv workshop presented by myself and Robin Sales called Better Podcasting Through Improv. That's Saturday at 2:15. And I'm also doing a How to Grow a Podcast Network panel on Saturday at 1:15. So 2 sessions in a row. But we've been getting good response on the Better Podcasting Through Improv. I think it's going to be a full room for that day. And Jemmy will be there. We're making her because we're throwing her
I am going to be
under
there
the bus.
with bells on. I gave you a warning that I'm clowning out.
I should bring
I'm
my
have
jester
so much
outfit.
Fun.
For you.
Please do. No, for you. For you.
No, I meant for you.
For you. Bring your crown. Bring your
you
crown
might see the king
cape.
show up at this.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited.
And lastly, have fun. That's why we do what we do. People take this so seriously sometimes, the whole podcasting thing. It's supposed to be fun. And so have fun. Have a good time. Allow yourself to have a good time. All right, your tips. I don't know yours yet, so I'm anxious to hear them.
Okay, so a couple of my tips are kind of general conferencing tips that do apply to Podfest, and some of them are very Podfest specific. But so tip number 1. You're going to want to have a lot of stuff on you. So make sure that you figure out a way to carry your stuff in as functional a way as possible. So like plan this as you're walking in the door, because literally as you walk in the Podfest doors, it's all full on calamity. Like it's one conversation to the next. So do this as you're walking in, before you walk into the doors. Make a quick way to be able to pull out your business cards, figure out a quick place to stash other people's business cards, have pens ready to go to write down things really quick, have a notebook ready to go for notes, maybe a big one for while you're in your sessions, maybe a smaller one as you're, standing around talking to someone. Perhaps even consider, you're a podcaster, bring a small mobile setup with you just in case there's an opportunity to do an on-the-go recording, or maybe your small laptop, something like that. Just make sure you have all the essentials, even your chapstick. I don't know about you, but for me, chapstick is essential. So I have a quick way to make sure my chapstick is ready at the hand. And also tip number 2, you are going to get a bag when you get to the conference. So if your organizational planning involves a bag, congratulations, you're going to get one as soon as you get in the door after you register. So use it wisely. Keep a couple of extra chargers in there, phone cords, like a backup stash of business cards or pens, what have you. Also, so at Podfest, they do this really cool thing with the scavenger hunt. And with the scavenger hunt, you go around and you get to meet all the different vendors. They have different rules, different things that they're looking for, but it's really fun. So you get to meet a whole bunch of people, learn about the different products, but you get to have the vendors then sign off on your scavenger hunt sheet, and you turn it in at the end of Podfest. And the great thing about it is you get to win free stuff. And it is always fun to win free stuff. The very first time that I went to Podfest, I actually won my external hard drive that I'm currently using right this very moment still. So you never know what you're going to win. I've seen people win everything from gift cards to mixers. So it's a lot of fun. So you definitely want to do the scavenger hunt. My 4th tip is Podfest is a lot of fun. And one of the things that makes Podfest so much fun is their ability to get people to network, to meet each other. And one of the things that they use to do that are parties. And the parties are a lot of fun. However, keep in mind, you're a podcaster. Your most precious commodity is your voice. So protect it, right? So if you're at these parties, like just be mindful of screaming too much, especially if you are a speaker or a panelist or a room moderator or something like that later on in the week and you're going to be on mic. Just protect your voice while you're there.
And Saturday, people were asking about this on Facebook. Saturday night's party, it's called Howl at the Moon Party, and that's what they did one of those last year. But this year, the difference is we were off-site last year, and everybody had to bus over. This is going to be at the hotel. And
fun.
They're doing it a little bit different this year, too, because the band is made up of podcasters. So the whole band's going to be made up of podcasters, and it is karaoke, so you'll see Jaime singing there.
No, you won't. Gosh, every time. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Trust me, the Howl at the Moon crowd knows how to put it down, so it's going to be a good time. But another great thing that happens at Podfest as you're having all these conversations in the hall are also impromptu interviews, whether it's you interviewing someone or someone saying, hey, can I interview you real quick? So you just want to make sure you protect your voice at the parties. You never know what may happen. And my last and final tip is, if you are like a lot of us podcasters, we get used to talking behind a mic, just with ourselves. We get a little isolated, and you get a little nervous about talking to other people. Well, if you want to figure out a way to talk to other people, because you definitely want to do that, and make sure you attend that influencer meet and greet on Friday. But once you get into the hallway, don't become a wallflower. You want to meet a whole bunch of people that way as well. So come up with some other little game that you can play to force yourself to keep meeting people. Like the first time I went to Podfest, I decided to turn it into a project for my podcast at the time, Curve the Cube, and interview a whole bunch of people. That's how I met Glenn, by saying, hey, can I interview you real quick? So that was my trick, my way. But other ideas might be putting a game together where you make sure that you meet someone from every state. So you're not done talking and introducing yourself to people until you've met someone from every state. Or put a checklist of a couple of dozen of topics together ahead of time, like interesting, weird, random topics, never know what you're going to get, and try to find someone who podcasts on each and every single one of those. So a nice little checklist of podcast topics to try to complete. Or maybe it's just simple as like collecting a certain number of business cards. You know, I'm going to talk to people until I have 200 business cards or something like that. But whatever it is, be intentional, have meaningful conversations. And I guess one last little tip I'll add on to here, since this is a very tipful Podfest talk, is, I'll encourage you to come see my panels too. So not only am I on the additional services panel as part of the Podcast Editors Conference on Friday, but then I am a moderator on Saturday at 3:15 for a podcast startup panel. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I've started up a podcast or two in my day. So it should be an interesting panel to listen to. And then on Sunday, I'm on a panel on monetization. So that'll be a lot of fun at 10:25 in the morning. So if you want to learn how to make money doing this crazy thing, then go check out that panel. You can find all that information on the panels that I'm doing at flintstonemedia.com/podfest.
So we hope that you find all of those tips helpful, and we're looking forward to meeting you all. You'll know me. Oh my
gosh, so excited.
You'll know me. I'll be the guy in the big cowboy hat. And you'll know Jemmy because...
you'll hear me before you see me.
Her before, that's just what I was going to say. She's a little short, so you're not going to see her, but boy, you're going to hear her from across the conference hall. And you'll go, that laugh sounds familiar. And now you'll know. And we're very friendly. You can come up and say hi. One of the people we met a couple of years ago at Podfest was a guy by the name of Steve Adams. And like you, he actually became a mentee of mine at episode 1 of his show, which was Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail. He had just hiked the Appalachian Trail at the age of like 63. That's 2,100 miles over 6 months. And what an accomplishment. And so he wrote a couple books about it, and then he started a podcast and has been doing it ever since. And then he started a network, and then you're going to hear what big milestone he hit as I caught up with Steve, who lives down near Tampa. Well, we have one of our good friends back here in Florida, and he is a Florida podcaster. Started, how long ago was it, Steve?
September 2016.
Steve Adams of the Hiking Podcast Network. I don't know where you got that idea from.
Hiking Radio Network. I did HRN, the same as you.
Yes, that's right. It is exactly the same, actually.
Exactly.
But you started out with one show, and it was Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail. That's and right. I have to congratulate you. Jemmy and I would both like to congratulate you because you just passed 1 million downloads for the network. And that's you're in a tiny niche of a tiny network, right? Of a microcosm out there. And look at you passing a million downloads. That's terrific.
It's difficult to know where you stand. I know some of these shows get 15 million downloads a month, and I think that's never going to happen.
Steve.
Exactly. and you're right. It's a niche of a niche of a niche, which I really like. And it seems to have grown just by people coming to the show and telling their friends they enjoyed it. So I love that part of it.
So, yeah, you started not only with a hiking show, you started with a hiking show about one specific trail.
Yes.
There's hundreds of trails around the world. And you started on that trail because you hiked that trail. That's what you knew.
Yeah.
And that's an important lesson, too, for people that are looking to start out. We always tell them niche down and talk about something, one, you're passionate about, and two, something you know a little bit about, and that's what you did.
Yeah, and I think it is such an iconic trail. I mean, it's a dreadfully overused word, iconic, but it is such an iconic trail that it means something to a lot of people all over the world. So, we have listeners in about 80 different countries, which is great. And I love the fact that people see this trail in almost mystical terms. And they come to it because they want to get their weekly fix.
Yeah. Well, and I am not a hiker, and I haven't missed one episode of your show.
That is amazing.
And the whole time you've been, you know that because I'm always sending you messages about the episodes.
Yes. Yeah.
Guests. But yeah, I mean, and when you started, you didn't know a lot about sound or editing or any of that stuff.
That was clear if you listen to the first couple of episodes. But you know what? I don't think you need to learn that much stuff. You can learn stuff pretty quickly to get something out there. But I think you do definitely look to improve all the time, not only the quality of the show you put out there, but also the quality of the sound. While mine isn't perfect, it's okay now. It's fine now. And I never get any complaints over sound, which is a good thing.
Well, and your content kind of overrides that. And I always tell people, if you don't have perfect sound, you have to have really good content to keep people. And, that's why they'll stay. And you've had a couple iffy interviews, that we've all done. I mean, we've all done that. We've certainly had some crappy sound on the Horse Radio Network because we have people out in farms talking to their cell phones. It's just bad. But the content's good enough, people hang around.
You actually said to me, and this is something that's always stuck with me, is that people come to the show for the subject, but then they leave. That they stay for the podcaster for the host, and I love that. And I think knowing from my emails I get every single day from people, they're engaged with my guests, and it's inspirational for them. And it took me literally 50 episodes to work out how and why this was reacting to people, and it's because that they hear ordinary people do an extraordinary thing. That's what it is. And they love living vicariously through them.
But you're the one that guides that. So, they come for the content, stay for the host. If they didn't like you, they wouldn't stay. And you're the one that guides that. And part of the theme of today's episode of the Florida Podcasting News Show is the fact of trying to think outside the box, not just having an interview show. Yes, you do interviews on your show, but you thought outside the box too. And you do segments. You do your main interview is the beginning of your show.
Sure.
And then you do a segment that's very informational. It really affects hikers. It's something that they can act on, or, it's informational, something that they can use in their everyday hiking. And then at the end of the show, you did something that keeps people around to the end. And it's the thing all podcasters are trying to do, keep people to the end of the episode. You read a book, and you get permission to read these books, and they're books about the Appalachian Trail. And I'm not a hiker, and I love and hang around. I can't wait to hear the next chapter.
Isn't that interesting? Because I never realized that was what would happen. In fact, when I started doing this podcast, I started it because I was originally just recording my books that I'd written to put together as an audiobook, which I still haven't actually finished doing, the audiobook. But what I then did realize when I met a bunch of podcasters, when they were recording in this library, that I could put together a show and actually have my book in the show. And that's turned out to be the best thing that's ever happened, because people, when they listen to the show, they hear there's a book, they think, I can go back to the beginning and get an entire audiobook. And so 70%, maybe sometimes 80% of my show downloads are from previous episodes, because people go back and binge listen specifically to listen to the books.
And there you go. There's a lesson right there, too. Give them a reason to want to binge listen to all the episodes.
Exactly. And also I think, if you recall, I've done, not only did I do the first hike, obviously before I started the podcast, but I've since done 2 hikes while I've been on the podcast. And I podcasted from the trail both times, once in Spain and once back on the Appalachian Trail again. And that really pushed downloads up. They went up to nearly 40,000 a month when I was on the Appalachian Trail last year. Yes. Yeah, and people do. They loved it. Do you know what? And the funny thing is, which really struck me, was that the episode they loved most of all was one that I hated most, which was the very last episode, when I actually was mic'd up when I was hiking. And they said the sounds of the hiking, even though the wind was making a noise on the microphone, that was a thing that really took them there. And that was a lesson to me, that the fact that bringing people to the place was really, really, working for them. So I'm going to try to do that in the future as well.
I loved that episode too, and I haven't hiked that mountain, but I loved that episode. I loved hearing you. I loved hearing your struggle. I mean, it was, but because it was real.
Yes, it was. It was. The struggle is definitely real out there, especially when you're 67 years old, mate. Let me tell you.
No, I loved the episodes that you did from the trail. I loved when you interviewed people, when you had the music from the trail. I mean, you did bring us along with you on the hike, but that's partly because you're a good storyteller too. Obviously, you've written books. You're just a good storyteller, and that comes across. So
appreciate that. Yeah, it's something that you I mean, you look at you. I bet you, if you look back at your first episodes, you think you almost cringe a bit how they're not so good. But I think you glean something a lot from your audience as well. You understand what they want, and you try to feed what they want.
Very good. Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us again. If you had to say one thing to new podcasters out there that are just getting started with your experience now, hitting 1 million downloads, what would it be? And you attributed most of that to word of mouth, right? I mean,
well, a lot of it, but I attribute, ironically, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, that good old expression, but I think the fact that you told me very early on, consistency, that's the thing that kills so many podcasts when they're not consistent. I know that my audience are waiting for each episode to come out, and once I was 1 hour behind, and I got an email at 4 a.m. Eastern time saying, "Where's the podcast?" So they're expecting your podcast to come out at a certain time in their life, and that consistency. I have never missed a deadline other than that 1 hour.
I listen every Thursday morning in the shower, and you've always been there with me, Steve.
Charming. Please don't end an interview like that.
But it's true. Yeah. Consistency is still the thing.
I think so.
Yeah, it's still the thing. But by being consistent, it allows your listeners to go, "Hey, look, there's this podcast. It comes out every Thursday," and they tell their friends that.
They do.
Yeah.
And in fact, recently, one of my good friends was doing a podcast. He just said, I've got a real life job now and I haven't got the time to do this anymore. And that's disappointing. I can see from the Facebook posts that talk about this, they're disappointed they're not going to get a show anymore. They've never had that with me. And I don't ever intend to let them have that. It's going to be, and I've now got 4 podcasts that come out weekly on the network. So I've got 4 to do and we haven't missed a deadline on any of them yet. So.
And I know, because I've listened to some of them, that you also hire hosts that people are going to like.
Yeah, they are particular. Well, I won't say particularly which one, but one of them has been incredibly popular, and she's so enthusiastic about it all, and her enthusiasm really shows through.
Yep, that's important. Well, thank you, Steve. Yeah. Where can people find the network?
Well, they can get everything under hikingradionetwork.com, and all my shows are there right from the beginning on a kind of jukebox. You can literally zoom through all of them.
And you'll be able to see Steve also at Podfest. He'll be there. You're going to be there, right? Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
You'll know him. He'll be the one carrying the hiking poles.
I'll try to.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
You're listening to the Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida. FPN is committed to promoting local brands and businesses through a network of podcasts celebrating the Sunshine State, and you can be a part of it. We'll make it easy to showcase your brand through the power of podcasting. Our team has successfully worked with over 50 companies to help promote their brands. Target our niche audiences through ads and host-read commercial spots on individual episodes, or contribute content to a show on a regular, ongoing basis. Make your brand part of the FPN family. Head to floridapodcastnetwork.com/partner with us for more information, to download our media kit, and to reach out. The Florida Podcast Network, celebrating Florida one local brand at a time.
Well, we had announced on this show a while back that Jaime and I were working on a project called the International Podcast Association. And
founding board members.
Yes, and we've been working on it for a year now, and we just basically had to put it on hold. Everybody in the group is very busy. We all run our own businesses, and we just didn't have time to devote to do it right at this point. Right. So what we decided we were going to do is we put it on hold. We still think it's a fantastic idea. We still think it's something that should be done in the industry, but time and money.
Especially where things are going.
Yes.
Where we see the writing on the wall. So we definitely need an association that represents the voices of the independent podcaster and is done by independent podcast, by us, for us, right?
That's right. And we're hoping that we can get some funding behind it and some people with some time behind it in the future to bring it to the forefront again. But right now it's just temporarily on hold. So we wanted to
it was just a timing issue for everybody. I mean, we're all so busy.
All right. You had gotten a notice from Apple. What was that?
I did. All right. So I went to go search for a client's show, as I often do. And when I opened up my iTunes podcast player, I got this little pop-up thing that says, new in Apple Podcasts, search the audio in beta. Type to find topics and people mentioned in the audio. And I was like, all right, this is interesting. What does does this mean what I think it means? Could it really be that cool? And I did a quick little search. I don't remember what I searched for, but I did a quick little search. What was cool was the search results not only show what the typical, like a couple of episodes, a couple of shows, but then you could tell in the search results, it was highlighting keywords that had been in my search query. So it's doing exactly what it sounds like. It is searching the transcribed text of the podcast for particular topic points and bringing them forward as search results. I'm like, that is amazing.
Oh, that's cool. They said they were really going to try and get that done. They're using AI for that.
Yeah.
They said they were going to try and get it done, but I guess they actually are getting it done.
Yeah, it sounds like they're starting to roll it out, and I'm so excited about it. I think this could really do wonders in terms of
Search
a lot.
Glenn the Geek and see if you get 10,000 things.
I'm not doing that. I'll kill my phone. No way. I know your trickery. But yeah, I thought that was super cool. I mean, it just goes to show you that podcasting, there's still so much more room for this industry to grow in all kinds of ways, including the technology, but also including the money, I understand, right?
Yeah, they just Chartable just came out with their projections of how much the top 5 podcasters are earning. And you're ready to be sick to your stomach?
I don't.
Joe Rogan, of course, tops the list with 30 million from his podcast last year.
Oh my good Lord. Does he need an assistant?
Next on the Forbes list of hosts is My Favorite Murder, which is one of the top podcasts all the time. 15 million.
That's kind of like a weird. If someone walks into the middle of a conversation, oh, what's your favorite podcast? What are you listening to these days?
Murder.
My Favorite Murder.
15 million. Boy, the murdery podcasts are doing well.
Oh, yeah, they do. I mean, whatever it says about us, we love us some murder.
Yeah, we do. The third is Dave Ramsey, 10 million. Like he doesn't make enough of everything else he does, right?
Oh, my God.
10 million. Dax Shepard is at 9 million. And Bill Simons is at 7 million. So there's your top 5.
Jeez.
I think
Who's Bill Simons. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, and there's one that's missing in here, and that's the Twit Network. The Twit Network, I know that's all technology stuff. Actually, they've been around they were one of the first, and that's how I started listening to podcasts was Twit, and there we're at 10 to 11 million, I think, last year. So,
oh, not Bill Simons, Bill Simmons.
Oh, Bill Simmons. Sorry about that.
Like, why am I different?
Sorry
all
about
right,
that.
Okay.
I don't even know who Bill Simmons is. So.
Oh, good Lord.
Sports guy?
Moving on. Yes, of course.
Okay, I gotcha.
And you say HRN needs to be in the sports category. You fraud.
That's right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in a couple of weeks. Please do come up and say hi to us. We would love to meet you, and we will be out and about the whole time. I'm actually getting in on Tuesday. I'm going to help with setup and everything, and I think you're getting in Thursday. So we'll be around all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
I am so excited because I call her my sister from another mister. We're twinsies. Her name is Carrie Ann Reed Brown. We're just days apart, literally born days apart. And we met at another podcast conference, and we've been telling her about how wonderful Podfest is this whole time. And finally, she has come in to check out Podfest for the first time. Carrie Ann Reed Brown. I'm so excited to see her there. I mean, the family just grows and grows. And as it continues to grow, it's going to be growing even more at Podfest this year. So get yourselves ready, put our tips into your pocket or what have you, into your smartphone and take them with you and plan, prepare, go on the website. I can't wait to see everyone there. And you can find all of the tips that we shared today and all of our other news, whatever else that we've talked about on this show, on past shows, all the shows at floridapodcastingnews.com. And we'd really love your feedback, so you can join us in our closed Facebook group. It's exclusively for fans of Florida Podcast Network shows. Just search for FPN Insiders on Facebook to leave us comments and get to know us in there. We'd love to hear from you. Hear what you think about this show, or what else you'd like to do, or what fun Florida things you're up to. So we look forward to talking to you. And you can also email me at any time, Jemmy at floridapodcastnetwork.com, or Glenn at any time, GLENN at floridapodcastnetwork.com.
Many thanks to this week's sponsor, Flintstone Media, and be sure to visit all the great shows on the Florida Podcast Network. There's a lot of them now. You can find them at floridapodcastnetwork.com. Until next time, thanks for hanging out on the inside of Florida's podcasting industry.